Yeah. So you guys have a lot of that cross breeze too, that or cross wind, I guess, or that comes off the water as well. This is a little bit cooler as well. Is
Yeah,
that
sometimes it's a little bit cooler than maybe our neighbors up north in Toronto, or sometimes a little bit warmer. And I think we're relatively flat and basically sea level. And we don't have a ton of coverage unless you're in Manhattan and have all the, or a number of very tall buildings, very tall buildings.
Yeah, brilliant. Well, I tell you what, I'm in Colorado and it was snowing this morning, and true to Colorado form, the sun is coming out. It looks delicious out there. And that's Colorado. That's why we dress in a ton of layers. Like it's just a layered cake over here. I have to appreciate, you know what? This is why it's actually kind of hard for me sometimes to go on vacation to places that just have like one weather, because I'm like, that's all, you just wear that outfit. Like you get one outfit a day. I don't understand that. Right? That does not appeal to my inner outfit nature. All right, everybody, welcome to today's Eat and Greet. I am so excited to be here with you guys in the United States. It's Thanksgiving week, whatever that means to you. For me, it means food, and I'm really pumped about that. Yeah, right. And so, and my friend Demetrius Bagley is with us today, and we're foodies. So
Yes, we are.
this is I love to get another foodie on the Eat and Greets because we're gonna eat, and I get real excited.
It's here. People haven't, it'll come into the shot in a
Well, we
momentarily.
might as well, let's just do it. Let's bring them in. Let's bring them. What are you guys eating out there? Because I've got garlic Gouda shrimp in a little salad here. And what do you have?
And sorry, it's not pretty, folks. I'm not there yet, but it's on my list. So I am vegan. And so for a long, long, long time, I have the Trader Joe's turkey list that was speared in the fork there. People saw that. I've got some, I have a CSA. And so that got turned around today, and they delivered what I was going, cranberries with some apples they also brought, and a couple other little things, including sugar. Some great sweet potatoes they brought. I've got some wild rice. I have some roasted Brussels sprouts. I have some mushrooms. They didn't bring that. I wish they had, because I need more mushrooms. Love mushrooms. And then I don't remember how I did that, but I have steamed turnips. Then I then whip it with a little bit of olive oil, or quite a bit of olive oil, and salt and pepper. I didn't add the almond milk, which would have made it, but it looks like mashed potatoes with like just a different hue, the slightly different hue.
Sure.
I don't have gravy on this plate. Please don't beat me up virtually. Um, I wanted to have everything just sort of done and not stretch myself too far. And nothing, everything is good and tasty. I'm excited to visit with a fellow astrologer and foodie, because those don't go together too much, at least in my experiences. And I'm like, I know you guys eat, and people like food they enjoy, but
Yes.
like we want to go in the kitchen, and we are missing grocery, or maybe you're doing it there, missing grocery shopping and farmers market, and
Yeah.
talking about this chef and hitting up this restaurant and.
And, because that is exactly what is going on. I'm trying to just cook every 5 minutes. What are you sipping on? What do you have there?
This is just water, nothing exciting.
That's okay. Look, this is how I do water.
Oh, I love that glass. That's
It's
great.
not, it's a vase. And I turned it into a glass. And so they were laughing at me on the Eat and Greets yesterday. They were like, Stormie has been marked safe from dehydration. I'm like, you're damn right. I love this glass.
It's beautiful, it's distinctive, fits in your head, and then you have plenty of water right for the hour.
That's right. It's ripe and crisp. But so, okay, let's get an intro to you. We've seen our food, but tell us just a little bit about you. And I always ask people, how did you get into this? Because we have a lot of people coming into the astro world, and it is not just you woke up from the womb and came into the astrology community. We have a lot of different pathways that have pulled us in here and have us where we're at now. So can you share with us a little bit about how you got into this?
Yeah, and I think you said this, or at least I think I heard it on my side. Aquarius Sun, Cancer Moon, Gemini Rising. I have been involved with astrology formally since 93, 94. I think it's early 94. I don't know the exact date. Um, And it's a longer story. Let me give a very abridged version. 93, 94, a lot of spiritual, the universe was very much sending me memos and books falling off shelves and a friend literally pushing me into a tarot deck, and many other things. But it was very clear the universe or spirits or whatever was speaking to me. And so I got involved on sort of two different tracks, energy, let's say, slash esoterics, and then veganism. And maybe we'll come back to this, maybe we won't. But the energy esoterics was, both were a pursuit of how do I vibrate peace in my lifetime if I don't want to see war? And then all this stuff started happening, including literally books falling off shelves at me. And for those who know the book, whether you're of a certain age or not like I am, Celestine Prophecy came out later that summer. But all
love.
And it was still, if you know the sort of the business story of it, it was independently published. But I was on this quest to understand energy in all these different ways, including esoteric. And that led to sort of the catalyst, or let's say the gateway to astrology for me book, which I got from the public library in Chicago, where I grew up. Kathleen Burke's, I'm trying to see the name in my head, Archetypes of the Gods. So my name, Demetrius, is connected to Demeter, which is also connected to Ceres, when you start getting into the Greek, Roman, and all of that. And so I was very familiar with those myths. And the book looks at the myths, the way I remember it at least, with respect to the planets. And I was like, what are these planets things, right? I just knew about the sun sign and the 12 zodiac signs. Fast forward, 6, 8, 9, I'm not sure again, let's say 6 to 9 months. Celestine I've read about Kabbalah and and I meet this guy, Doug, at the local coffee house, Doug Wolf, who's a jazz musician, Cancer Sun, I have the chart somewhere, July Cancer. He ends up teaching me and I think 2 other people, tarot on the Crowley deck. I think I say it wrong because I hadn't heard it ever said for years, or decades even. The Thoth deck or Thoth or TH or TH. Mm-hmm. And then that has astrology symbols in it. And he was partially looking for like I was a great student and really excited and eager because tarot, once you get it, you can put that deck in your bag, your purse, your purse, what have you. And you could literally go get on a plane or any other sort of transportation or walk or bike and go read cards, quote unquote, anywhere in the world, language barriers aside. So I thought that's what I was going to do. And this was going to be my side sort of spiritual esoteric thing. But he was like, you need to learn astrology. I just have a feeling. Anyway, I got pulled into it. I took the tarot classes and was really into the Stormie. I'm really interested in the story lines, my language, even before all these esoterics. How are we learning from certainly our parents and our environment and from culture, etc. And then who's shaping those? So I have a degree in screenwriting, and that's part of what I'm interested in, are motifs and symbols and right? And astrology has all that. It's some sacred geometry and timing and. So I just got, to wrap it up here, I got pulled into it very quickly because the tarot's amazing. It is a simpler than not, in my experience, from what I said, tool. Astrology is sort of this quote unquote endless or multiple human lifetimes to really get all of it. That's not to say we can't learn the language in a year or 2 these days, maybe even a few years like myself. But the complexity of it and the actual math, I learned to cast charts by hand. All of that drew me in. I already knew these archetypes, which I was very interested in by way of the zodiac, but also in other ways. I don't know if I knew the Myers-Briggs at that point, but just these different personality tests in a way that we, for better and for worse, categorize people and sort of, and energies really, to understand them. But once I saw the chart and kind of got the astrology chart and got that beat on that complexity and all these lines happening and these symbols. I'm like, what are these symbols? How come I haven't seen these symbols before? The planets, the zodiac signs I had kind of seen, but didn't really know them. But the planets, and then also, for a trine and a square and all of that drew me in. And now it's not quite, but almost 30, pardon me, it's almost 30 years later. And it's still this fascinating subject. There's always these new, or at least new to me, new rooms to go into without parsing that out. So yeah, hopefully that's a lot of flavor and color of why. There's other bits in there for sure, right? But astrology continues to be sort of the gift that gives, the education, and there are other topics that do that for sure. But I don't know, there's something about astrology as sort of small but mighty in a way. Yeah, I'll stop there.
Yeah, but that's beautiful. I mean, how we get here is how we get here. And then we get to make some decisions about what we're doing on Astrology Island, how we're going to give it back, because that's it. That's what I call it. I'm like, this is Astrology Island, y'all. Welcome to the island. And so it's fun for me to do these and to connect with other astrologers, because as people are coming into the community and really ready to take the jump in astrology, I feel like I get to be the best kindergarten teacher ever. I'm like, welcome, get off the bus onto the island. It's safe. This is nice. Have a snack. I get to be the welcoming committee, which is absolutely brilliant. Now, you have also, while you've been on Astrology Island, you have conferenced your eyeballs off. So you've kind of seen this happen around us. And within seeing all of that happen, how do you feel like you found your space as to where you are now? Like, what's your bag?
Great question. My bag is I'm a producer astrologer, in that order. Producer of events and media, maybe in that order, maybe not, depends on the day and my mood. So I am an Aquarius sun. I have a 10th house Placidus sun. And so one of the questions from almost the very beginning of me seeing my chart and even getting an introduction into astrology charts is not even, it was never a question. It was from a lot of different people, not just the first teacher for me. How's Demetrius going to be an astrologer, and how is that going to be different than most other astrologers? And this is in the early 90s. So, right, this is pre-internet. A lot of this astrology software doesn't exist. A lot of tech things we would talk about today, or just even rely on these days. Right, Zoom, right? This is not, it's not a thing. It's a fantasy or a dream. I'm really interested in, and not just because I've worked on and been to over 24 astrologer conferences, how we connect with each other, astrologer to astrologer, and also how we connect, I think you just said a couple minutes ago, how we connect with the greater public, because a number of colleagues, not the least of whom is Sam Reynolds, have said astrology is basically a language. Yeah. And wow, there's so many things to say about that. And one of them, just a nudge, is some people think they know the language because they know the 12 signs. That's a piece of it for sure, right? But that's not really the constructs. It's obviously not aspects, progressions, and the list can go a little bit on and on. Yeah, I'm still discovering what it means for me to be a producer astrologer beyond sort of those broad strokes as we get ready to enter the new the #new age of air. But yeah, I'm really excited that you have this series of Eat and Greet, and I know you have other media making and content making as far as e-courses and whatever else going on. Right, the technology is there. Arguably, it's been there for a minute or two, but the public is clearly, so basically I started volunteering heavy in the community over a decade ago, right? So the end of the, right around the prior recession, 08, 07, 08.
Right.
And I had already been a little bit in the mix as far as the local, AKA NYC astrologer conferences, which are sizable, and we have a lot of names here. Which I didn't know when I moved here in 04. I thought I was going to be starving to find 2 astrologers to befriend. lo and behold, wait, this is the publishing capital of the world. It's the cultural capital of the world.
Mhm.
There's a lot of esoteric history here, which certainly includes astrology. Shout out to Karen Christino, who's written a book about Evangeline Adams. Evangeline has gone on, but Evangeline is very important to the history of astrologers, at least in the US, globally. Um, Karen has written a book about Evangeline and knows a ton about this very fascinating character who was also pretty big to do astrologer.
Yes, and we are trying to get her over here. I was like, please stop writing things and come have an eat and greet. I'm working on her.
I'll send you a little bit after about that. Yeah, so I'm still sorting out what it is, but one of the things that I think as myself, which, card carrying Aquarian here, literally, it's very, and this was before the pandemic and not just for astrologies and astrologers, we humans have to get together more in person and break bread and have plates and salads and vases for water, and just, we need those experiences to understand each other better, how we're similar, how we're different. If astrology is at the table, if astrologers are at that table, great. If not, that's okay too. But I think this is really important for how we understand nuances and also energy shared in virtual space, right? Same time, not same space here, but space. I used to joke many years ago, but now I'm like, wait, maybe this is what my part of my chart. That green Thai curry, which is one of my very favorite things to eat, is the key to world peace. Having a dinner with the appropriate people who may or may not be the elected or the appointed folks, depending on how those levers of power work. But just being able to, in my head, the last minute is a fresh made pita that just is beautiful, just to the fingertips. And then more so, right, when we taste it and eat it and chew it. But there's a feel with usually a fresh made, usually local, sometimes warm, sometimes even hot. And I'm like, it's almost like a fabric or textile. What does that look like with trying to quell moods and get people to really open up, in the same household, in the same planet, time and space, and yes, I know that might be very dreamer and very imagined, sort of John Lennon. That's part of who I am, and I really do believe in the power of food / taste and communal. Maybe that's not the right word, but shared meals, right? We know that's gone away in our lifetimes at the family table, and there are pluses and minuses to that. But I think there's also something to be said for the extended community and how that's drastically reshaped, certainly in our, I would say before our lifetimes, but certainly we've seen right, that we could share this, let's call it lunch right now, and you are hundreds of miles away. And other people are joining us, maybe with their water and or their vegan nog or their afternoon tea, or maybe their evening nightcap if they're tuning in from across the Atlantic or what have you.
Yes, I am just here for all of that. I believe in the power of sitting together, eating, being physically and soul fed about things. I believe in coming to the table and eating together while we're growing when it's uncomfortable. And we get to sit there and grow up in public together with food. And, I just am here for all of that. And I can't wait for the world to kind of open up and to be able to take the eat and greets into a space that is in public and virtual, so that, we can do that together. We've just found our tribe name today. We're officially the Astrology Soulmate family.
It's so funny you say about opening up. Part of me tries to tune that out most of the day, right? Post-masked interim is usually how I refer to it. And I was like, how much food would Stormie and I make if we had, let's say from 9 a.m. this morning, right? And we're in the same space, zip code as it were. And then we were feeding people, and then we were on stage, and we had help to get food to
Yes,
people. And I was like, wow, all those smells and those
absolutely.
shapes. And I'm like, okay, let's give it a minute. And I think we'll get there. Probably not in calendar 2020 for obvious reasons. We'll see about 2021, but I was like, I can see that in 2022, at least the latter half, if not the early half. But yeah, I was laughing about that. I'm like, ooh, we might spend a lot of time on menu planning. Like, we got to decide, we got to shop, we got to.
Absolutely. As the astrology community moves on and we kind of get back to the in-person things, I'll be in the kitchen. Okay. Look, I understand your progressed son is doing this, that, and the third, but I'm going to be in the kitchen. I'm going to make sure that we eat, and the people that are like that, the foodies and because we've got other astrologers that are coming that are chefs, right? Who are going to come eat and greet with us. So, man, it's a good time for all of this. It's very exciting. But also, speaking of excitement, Uranus and Taurus, let's just put it out there, right? Uranus and Taurus. And this has changed the game around food, around shopping, around the things that make us feel secure and how we interact with those things. And I would, I'm a Taurus. Look, I'm over here being shaken, not stirred. Okay. It has literally, I was like, I'm going to be so skinny this year, right? All this moving around and doing things different than I normally do. But you're an Aquarius. So what does this feel like to you? And what are you noticing in our world? That's a big question. What are
Is.
you noticing around food and shopping? Let's stay to our topic because we'll be off track in a minute.
Yeah, with me, definitely. Stormie, I'm really excited. I'm going to take the big question just a little bit and then dive right into shopping. I know 2020 has been something for a lot of us, most of us, maybe all of us. I don't know about that. While it has shaken us up, as you said, and certainly your Taurus suns and risings and moons, I'm also excited and anticipating once that subsides, which is going to be a second or two, what is that new direction? What are those new flavors? What are the new event models? I haven't really seen astrology from astrologers with food served, right? And definitely not food that's homemade or heart made, if I can say it that way. I don't know that that's a quote unquote radical idea, but I'm guessing not much of that's been done since, say, the late 60s or early 70s, right back in that astrology peak. And I think we're heading for a peak for astrology into this decade. Dot, dot, dot. Uranus and Taurus, and let me lean ahead. I didn't realize, because I've been like, let me just focus on 2020 as a person, as Demetrius, as well as an astrologer, if that makes sense, or personally and professionally, to say it a little bit more clearly. And I forgot that the nodes in a minute or two, or basically a year, are gonna, the North Node in particular will be in Taurus, and meet up with Uranus probably in 2022. I didn't look it up. I'm like, I'm not even trying to deal with the rest of this decade at this moment. Let me just deal with November 2020 and some of 2019, and certainly the other prior 10 months of 2020. This idea that we've gotten a decade, I think it's a meme that I saw a few weeks ago, a decade in the calendar year of 2020 is really important, Stormie. And I've been a little upset with myself and a lot of colleagues. Now I'm starting to see these writings and this language come out just this month. But when I was at the last astrologers conference I went to in person was in Chicago. It was UAC, which stands for United Astrology Conference, but it's all astrologers. Like you do need to speak astrologies, as we call it, to kind of get down. And this is 1,500 astrologers from all over the world, right? And let me start there, because Uranus had just come back into Taurus. While that was the ninth UAC stretches over a few decades. I think it's about 30 years old now, maybe 30 plus. there was a diversity of race slash ethnicity, of more younger people, younger being Gen X here, Gen Z and Gen Y. And this had been a concern for many, many years. In fact, it was sort of how I was pulled into, appointed to the board of an astrology org right about almost a decade ago, and many other adventures, totally different conversation. So I think coming to this question, Uranus and Taurus is exciting, but also disturbing because it is sort of a little princesism here. It is a housequake. It is a shake, being shaken down, and we all will face it. Not just the Taurus suns, but where is it on our chart, and how? What does that look like? And I think one of the things that I'm seeing with astrology in general, or astrological knowledge, particularly for lay people, but even for astrologers, is, and this happens a lot around, or had been happening with Mercury retrograde. Don't resist it. You don't have to always understand it or know what's going on. That's part of life, astrology or not. But don't resist it. Really.
Oh, you're on a strike.
Uh-oh, you have me there?
There we go. We lost you for just a minute, but I feel
Okay.
like you're back and we're connected.
Good, okay. And let me check and see if I close any programs up. I think I closed everything up. It's exciting, but I think there's a way that Taurus is overlooked as a zodiac sign, Uranus and Taurus, hashtag Tyrannus. I think Taurus is the second sign, right? People may know if you don't now. Hopefully now you do. Aries is the first. I think Taurus is really related to the basics. Certainly the 5 or more senses, right? Sight, sound, touch, feel, taste, smell. I think I said them. And then, you can go on with the 6 or 7 or more if you want. But I think there's a way that this stay at home has made people globally more aware of what's at core to them, what's basic, what's important. And for sure, I think that is being nudged around with how grocery shopping, maybe shopping in general. I think Taurus is the shopper of the zodiac. And I was saying that ironically for many years, but a few years ago, debating with someone, I think she's a Libra son of, and she was like, I don't get it. And I was like, well, it's the other Venus sign. And when I talk to Tauruses about buying and purchasing, they're just really crisp and on it. Not that Virgo isn't also. Virgo, I think, is more the bargain hunter and sort of the brand connoisseur. I think Taurus, in my experience, is talking with you all, it's about quality. And it's also, what's this slang that is used a lot by millennials? It hits different. Mm-hmm. And I think Taurus energy is very in tune with how something hits. If we think about a perfume and not necessarily the price of it, but the quality of it, or a scented candle. Certainly, one of the things I feel like I've noticed, this is just me, I don't think this is, my biases, my chart and subjectivity of my worldviews or whatever. They'll go for a simple, amazing meal. Maybe it's high end, maybe it's mid tier, maybe it's the dive in the wall. But again, they want it to hit in a certain way. Yeah. And I'm not trying to hit in a sort of violent way, but a oomph, like right, Scorpio's opposite, a sort of passion, a sort of depth, a richness, so to speak, a oomph. Let's just go with that. And I've been thinking about, well, what does that look like with Uranus? This is a minute ago, coming to Taurus. So I decided to start watching news headlines around shopping, particularly around retail mall shopping. And it's amazing, right? I've been at it probably about 3, maybe even 4 years now. Yeah, almost since the last US election. So let's 3-ish years, not quite 4. And a lot of the experts in that industry, right, who, as far as I know, are not astrologers or consulting one, it just matches up. They're like, grocery delivery is going to be huge at the end of, what would that be? 2024, basically when Uranus is leaving Taurus. It's going to do this, it's going to do that, it's going to do that. And I know I'm sort of ellipsing a lot of things. One of the things that I did expect right in that time span that's already happened now because of the pandemic is, there are people who do this for a living. They were saying 30%, something like 30, 35, some 30 number of households by mid this decade, 2020s, were going to be ordering groceries online, home delivery. We have,
Okay.
certainly gone past that in 2020
Okay.
by necessity. And certainly some people, I don't know if I'm one of them, and I love grocery shopping, will go back to shopping in person, presumably in 2022, 2023, maybe, with different shapes, depending on what all that looks like with COVID-19. But there's a way that we humans adapted so quickly, if messily, in I think it was barely like 2 months, arguably, 2 weeks. That late Pisces, mid March, late March. By the time May 1st came around, right, almost middle of Taurus,
Mhm.
people kind of knew some of their basic new routines. What had to get cut away, what they couldn't legally get to, and/or it was just too much trouble. And right, grocery eating, not just because I love eating it, we love eating, that just drastically changed. And I had to grieve for some of that. I love grocery shopping, Stormy.
Yeah.
Again, vegan, and I'm not buying all of the things, but just to see, like, I'm a big Trader Joe's fan, and I like how they have these curated new items and they're seasonal and certainly they're ongoing. I'm like, it took me many, many weeks to get used to, what do you mean I can't just run around town and buy this spice here and this vegan sausage here, and go into Trader Joe's and avoid the crowd and get one of these truck mixes they have that I adore, or get this, that, or the other. And then it was like, well, you can, but you have to have these masks on, by law. Well, first by their rules, Trader
Mhm.
Joe's specifically, right before a lot of grocery stores adapted. Then it's the law here in the city, not the state of New York, and so I think there's a way that I was sort of ready for Uranus. This All the planets are change agents, I would argue, but Uranus really does put things on its head and remix and turn things upside down or right side up, depending how they were, in these very lightning bolt, eureka, drastic, and sudden ways.
Yeah.
Pluto and Neptune, I think, are more gradual and more processes. Uranus, I think, and a lot of this is from elder astrologers, is an event, and then we adjust. I mean, they're all events per se, but you
Mhm.
really can, very precise with sort of timing, say, boom, this is going to happen. I don't know if we'll get to it today, but I had that sort of event happen where when we set this up to have this eat and greet today, I think about 2-3 months ago, I had no idea I was going to move, but Uranus in Taurus and my 12th arguably took out my fridge at the previous place I lived. It was also squaring the MCIC pretty tightly. And then there's more to it without getting astro geeky.
Sure.
And I was watching for not the fridge going out in November 18th, but I miswrote or didn't remember the transit and other things going on was October 18th. And sure enough, the fridge went out, but I didn't know until 2 or 3 days later. But then that cascaded even more drastically, Uranus, into the landlord basically saying, get out, not
You're
replace the fridge, get out. There's more to the story, of course, but and so I was like, okay, let me not fight with her with this COVID wave 2 in this winter. And I'm in a better place. We won't do it here, but I'll put it on my Instagram if people want to see. But I'm in a place with a dishwasher, which I didn't have before,
and your
which I
beautiful
wanted.
stove.
And there's a griddle on top of the stove top. Haven't gotten there yet. I've never used a griddle. And. So I think that what I love about astrology and astrologers is that we can look at timing before the fact and or after, and we can help navigate what the sort of energetic weather or the landscape, the lifescape even, is. That doesn't mean we know it all, even though myself and some of the rest of us might want to and pretend that or ape that some days. But it is a great tool set in my experiences and observation to go through sort of Uranus doesn't kid around. And I think there's something about Taurus, right? The bull. And I think about literal bulls. There's a lot of correspondences if you look at all the quote unquote, all 12 signs. But the bull is this very quiet, peaceful, actual creature. But when you piss off a bull, right? This is how we get the matadors and the reds and then Spain, etc.
They gotta do a lot of work to get that thing mad. Have you ever noticed it?
Yes, and here's what I've learned from the animal, and then had to come back and watch. When Taurus energy gets going, and bulls get going, the actual animal, that's a lot of weight / strength, a power, and it moves. It's not the fastest land animal by any stretch, but they are faster than humans and many other animals. Almost all of us, I think all of us smaller. Basically, I don't have the chart sort of in my head. They're not faster than most cats, or most outside cats, as it were, big cats, and a good few other animals. But humans go at our fastest. We can go 28, 30 miles, 30 plus an hour. When they get going top speed, 35 miles an hour clean. Because right now they've got a target, they've got a destination, but otherwise it's right. Bulls literally are sitting or lying in fields chewing I think it's the cud or the grass or the what have you. And I think of Buddha a lot for Taurus and that sort of state. But in that too is Buddha, right, once that happens in that story and journey, has a lot of power. So I've been really curious, what does that look like, Stormie, for all this sitting that we've been doing, which some are attributing to Saturn in Aquarius, Saturn in Capricorn, other things happening in Capricorn. And right, it's a bunch of things happening at once. It's part of the fun of astrology. And I'm like, I think we need to pay more attention because we're early into Uranus in Taurus. We're barely a third of the way degree-wise through.
Yes, we're just there.
And it's there. Let me throw this out if I can, with respect to what we're doing here. I was worried about the US not cooking enough. It's healthier to have home cooked meals and to cook for ourselves. And I love to go out to restaurants. So let's be really out to eat otherwise. Let's be very clear about that. But we know from a lot of health data, it's healthier, not just physically, although that's key, right? Also emotionally, because we probably will cook for someone else in the household and or at work or a neighbor or something. A lot of us don't, but that's the trend if we look at, back up and look at the data. I am so excited that so many people are getting their sourdough bread on and cooking this and roasting this and Instapotting this and because of the health, right? And obviously we're in health, but also the basics, right? Getting back to touching our food and smelling it and interacting with it and cutting it and not necessarily shopping for it, obviously, in person. Not all of us. Yeah, so those are some. I have many more thoughts. We won't get through all of them today. But yeah, I've been really excited about that. Certainly, unexpected turn of events for all of us. But the benefits, and I know there are many negatives to it. I'm not discounting those at all. But I want us to hold both of those. Mm-hmm. I think that's really important because these are challenging. There's so much astrology that's, my bias is, challenging in 2020 and really for the rest of the 2020s. The paradigm, I would argue, wants to move. And I think that we astrologers might be overlooking how Uranus and Taurus is key to that pivoting our priorities as humans, as countrymen, as astrologers, and.
Absolutely. But I think that, I will say to the other side, I think it depends on where you're listening or what your motivation for looking was. Taurus, as a Taurus, I was like, okay, this is going to be big. So we've been talking about that over here. And the other idea that I have around it is that, like, in our Tauran energies, it's fixed earth. We've been able to be steady and stable in our lives in that area for a very long time, and Taurus has been deepening it and making it work. And even when it was shitty, enduring it, right? Because a Taurus will stay even when it sucks. That's the thing. That is not a great quality of ours, but we have to learn not to do that. But so as Uranus has come around and shakes that up and really gets under that, because to shake up Taurus is not to nudge the bull, it is to unearth the ground beneath it. And so it's like waking up a mountain. And when we do that in our lives, that means the things that were my security blankets, the things that I held the most value to, even if it's just a mental thing. Taurus third house, what have you been thinking for a long time and standing on that as a belief or a thought process? And it got shaken out this year. But Uranus is also the liberator. He's not coming around as punishment. He's like, Taurus, love your show. Super great. Your hair looks good, but also you're dying. We need to awaken you spiritually, physically, materially, because you're not free. And I want you to be free. How free do you want to be this year, Taurus? This is going to be scary, but how free do you want to be? And so in that, I think about it like that. I'm like, ooh, in the Tauran areas of our chart and in our world, how free do we want to be? What are we looking at that we've been doing the same way for a long time and it just can't come forward anymore? Moving into the energy of air led forward with Aquarius, Uranus is pretty specific about what the new vibe is, And so we've got to get in that. In Taurus, we've had to unearth a little bit. So I definitely see all the change. The other thing I think about is that with Taurus energy, we don't necessarily need to do or create anything new. We do the same old things in a new way, right? Taurus is not known for being the one to go create the brand new whatever. We just make sexy what has been. But and that's enough sometimes. And I think when we look at it, look, the way we communicate, that's not different. Taurus didn't make that different, but we communicate different. Now we have Aquarius energy or Uranian energy. It's online. We still got to be grocery shopping, but you got to call that in now. Stay in the car. Let them put your stuff in. It's not new stuff. It's just old stuff done in an innovative, free kind of way. So there's a lot to be said for that. And I think genuinely across the globe, depending on how easy we were able to Uranian energy or Aquarius, which is be flexible and adaptable, which is not a huge Tauran skill, will show us, I think, where we've struggled a little bit more in this area as well. And also how deep down, like let's say resources, right? How deep down have we been dependent on something else for our resources? And Uranus said, you're not free. And it unearthed it. And we realized we're naked, we're vulnerable. I got to find something else, right? That was a lot. I got really excited for a minute.
That's good, though. I love what you were saying. There's some new beats for me there.
Freedom. Oh, and Uranus is going to be coming out of retrograde January 14th. I mean, everything from the time that Uranus came into Taurus, you guys, look at what got different, what got event level different in your life besides the pandemic. But you can count that if you need to. Then Uranus went retrograde in August, and he's like, let's cross-examine. I'm going to show you why you had to let those things go. Why do we need to innovate? That's what I think about the universe and planets. They're kind, right? They're not just throwing stuff out of your life, but you usually get an opportunity to retrograde to see why and get some of this human spiritual connection and understanding. So as Uranus comes out of retrograde at 7 degrees of Taurus, by the way, January 14th, then you get to take everything you saw and all that innovation and apply it to the new vibe. And then we'll get down the road and check in again and say, okay, what am I doing? I mean, it's a very kind motion, or it's at least very practical.
Here's
retrogrades.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. Well, two things. I sat with this notion that's not from an astrologer, but from sort of esoteric self-help I don't remember, I think on Instagram. And her name just flashed through my head. It'll come back in a second. What if we start reframing, astrology or not, the universe is always for us, with us?
Yes, a cosmic conspiracy to have your life on fleek.
That changes up, I think, some of what's the tapes, or disrupts the tapes, or whatever we're hearing in our heads. But then I also think there's a way that bridges to the very often used, okay, here are your lemons or your limes or oranges, whatever you want, but let's stay with lemons, right? Very common. These are here now. There's a bushel or like a truck worth or whatever it is. What are you going to do with those? And we can deny and turn away, and I've done it, and I'll probably do it again. I think it's very human.
Mm-hmm.
But one of the things that I left 2019 with coming into this year, which was a lot more than I ever expected, even knowing the astrology transits, is okay, I can make lemonade, I can make lemon bars, I can make lemon olive oil cake. That's a real thing that I make,
It's
actually.
so good.
And certainly you can make lemon soaps and all sorts of stuff. And that, and you can trade lemons for people who have other things that you want, right, in this imagination. That's been really key to not dwell in the negative. That doesn't mean it didn't happen, it doesn't feel that way, but it also, for me at least, has been, okay, well, why would this happen if the universe isn't evil? Maybe it's kind, maybe it's not, I don't know. I'm sort of more cynical at this age that I'm at, but I am kind of like back to, my younger self. Okay, what can I do with this? Right, this wrinkle, this, that, or the other. And that, again, that doesn't mean it doesn't feel uncomfortable. It doesn't, what you said already, it doesn't mean that we don't have to process through, and then that's going to happen in 2 minutes or 2 hours, even 2 days, or even 2 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
It does allow us, though, to embrace the problem, right, or the challenge, or the moment, and the now, the present, and work through that. And that's something I had gotten away from and still working my way back towards, as it were, and through. But there's so much possibility that I think, right, the world didn't really grumble in the way, at least I don't think, this spring, particularly in April, the way I thought. I think we were very confused. We were very, as collectively, very thrown off, and so on. But I didn't see, and maybe that's because I'm not a parent and I didn't have to deal with children going to school and that whole really kooky dance, if I can say that. I think there is a way that change is always challenging for humans.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that astrology can, I'm not from Canada, I don't know why the O just came out like that. I know that astrology and astrologers can, and more often than not, do help us navigate those. But one thing I've seen this year, and I think is really important to the Capricorn archetype, and I think will be more jolting here in the next few weeks, there are numerous things in life that are processes, or processes, if you want, and those take their own time, not the least of which I've been dealing with in a lot of different ways the last handful of years, is grief, right? Which has its own mysterious, not to be project managed or calendared way. And certainly there are other processes, emotional or what have you. But I think there's a way that this slowing down, this pause, as we called it in New York State, or pausing, and right, sitting like a bull, and having to sit with ourselves and the world and the universe in 2020 and again. I'm hoping that we'll be more clear about our choices and our pleasures and our displeasures and our dislikes and our what we need, what we feel and hear, right, intuitive, what we need to be doing, what we need to be buying, what we don't need to be buying, and how to buy. I want to throw out some things on shopping. I know I didn't say a ton about shopping.
Well, that has changed because I'm like, Stormy Christine, don't you dare buy those shoes because where are you going? Where are you going? Who is going to see those? Buy apples. We can eat those. Right? Because where are we going?
Well, one of the things I've heard with that is, right, this is imaginary, right? I presume it is. You want those shoes, but you're like, okay, where am I going to wear these even post mass? And then maybe you don't buy those, but you buy a different shoe from that maker or a similar shoe from a different maker. But I think there's a way that we're not just, and I'm thinking about Aries and Gemini on, book ending Taurus. We're not so impulsive, quote
Yeah.
unquote, Aries word, and we're not so, no pejorative here, jumpy in the way that, or flighty even, that Gemini is. I think there's a lot more, and I arguably think it's not just the Uranus and Taurus, but has to include that. We're more thoughtful and considering, is this how I need to spend my time, my energy, of course, my money? So I'm really curious, right? Because bring a little bit of this business newspaper watcher eye in. Malls will be something very different if they survive 2-3 years. And they were already having problems as a business. I think these big players like Amazon and Walmart and certainly there are other grocery chains across the US, if not across the Western world. Tesco, I know, is one in the UK. Grocery delivery is not going to go away. It is going to come back. It's not going to be 80, 90% or whatever it is now. But I think there's a different, and curbside pickup, I think will grow from where it is now. I think home delivery will decrease because we'll get out. A lot of us want to get out of the house.
Okay, we're like, I gotta go see people. Gotta stop waving at the Amazon man like a psycho.
Well, I'm really excited to see how the events change and how we get together, and certainly food and or drink, but at our homes and parks and such, and certainly movie theater, the bar, the restaurants that are able to survive. I feel like we are, well, no, I don't feel like, I wonder if we're going to see quite the shift into the nodes being in Taurus and Scorpio, right? So 2022 and after. I wonder if consumerism will go away, so to speak, or look different by the time, right? This is barely a year out before this starts. I know that might sound radical, I would argue it is, but there are other things happening right now astrologically. We are going to leave a 200-year paradigm that is based on the earth element, right? Taurus is part of that. And I think Taurus is giving us, as shocking, right, Uranus word, as it may be, as jolting, as upsetting, to exit with a cleaner break. Because I don't think Pluto and Neptune, most of the other planets give that. Mars certainly can, and Uranus can, maybe a couple others. But Uranus does give us sometimes that clean break. Again, it doesn't make it easy or less, quote unquote, painful. But I think if we, and I've said this specifically to COVID in different ways, take the hit. Let's shut the whole country down, or the whole continent. I mean, that's not possible, but I think people know what I mean. And let's, get rid of this invisible invader, or at least, squelch it. And then let's ease back in. And the countries that have done that, or some semblance of that, they're, moving around with masks on, I think, in all cases, because virus at that level is pretty tricky. I'm circling around and I'm watching the time, thinking of the topic, which I may have skated.
We may have blown it out of the water today, but I feel like this has just been so good and so like wonderful thoughts to sit with and consider how they're showing up or how we see them in our world and in our lives at home even. Because I'm with you. I think that Uranus, like if we've been on the fence between something for a while, Uranian energy comes around and it's like, there you go. Pick a side. Now what are you going to do? The great decider, like rock, paper, scissors. You're all, nobody won.
Here's the upside I want to throw in. I feel like you said this maybe in the roundtable that we did together with Michael, or somewhere else I've seen speak. Maybe it was somewhere else actually. If Uranus and all these other planets, or even just the universe, is really for us,
Mhm.
right, and working for us, not in the ways that we want to will and command, but actually is working with us. I think Uranus is off a transit is often an invitation to that is done, clean, maybe abrupt. I think it's always abrupt, but I think if we, because you can tell time by it, many, almost all,
Absolutely. Mhm.
it's an invitation to move on and change. Again, not that it's easy, but I think when we embrace all of the planets, and maybe Uranus in particular, we can grab better hold of the opportunity of the change and italics there. I want a creative energy there, or the innovation, as you said earlier.
Innovation.
And I know that's not easy. Card carrying Aquarius here, so to me, Uranus rules Aquarius. I know there's uh, debate about that, different conversation. But one of the things that I've had to remind myself a lot this year with all these little changes we've had to make, all the way to medium size and big changes with COVID out here or there, or what have you, is change is part of life. You're arguably Aquarius / Uranus um, is more apparent change. I think of Aquarius Uranus energy as the remixer of the zodiac. And so, just what you said, it's not uh, all of a sudden hitting a button or whatever, and then we're on Mars, the planet Mars or Venus or different galaxy. It's let's remix this. Let's have most of the groceries delivered at home because of this invader, and let's get the apps and get our math folks and whoever else had to build out these apps and these websites for Amazon and Walmart and all the other grocery chains and Targets and retailers who are surviving in the world. I want to invite people to I want to say two things about Uranus and Taurus and shopping. Longtime vegan here, almost 30 years, coming on the horizon here as we leave calendar 2020. I've been really excited by what I knew was coming across the decade, but has happened in barely 6 months. A lot more people have upped their plant-based grocery
Oh
shopping
yeah.
and eating this year. I haven't read anything great. People see stuff, please send it to me on social media about why. I've seen the logic of it, but I want a little bit more like, why did sourdough blow up? Which I have seen some articles about in newspapers. I also want to invite people to support local, including myself, local shops and businesses, because I think what we're going to see on the other side of this post-mask interim is boutiques come back, right? Uranus and Taurus, and that culture and those relationships,
Mhm.
right, of shopping in the neighborhood or nearby. And then I think we're going to keep, because Amazon is huger than I think we can curse, than all fuck, not just in this country, but I think literally half the countries on the planet. And I don't want to get into that debate here, although I think we need to have that debate about what's going on there and Bezos, etc. But I've always imagined not a company, but sort of a government institution or a multi-country that got us our basics. And yes, I'm not a commie, but yes, I am borrowing from that idea without wading too much in those waters. As we wrap up here, that's really interesting to me because one of the things I still want to see in this my lifetime, and maybe through this transit, maybe this decade, let's get everybody their basics, their housing, their clothing, their food.
It's
Get their
5 o'clock.
roasted Brussels sprouts on with the salt and pepper and some oil. They can steam it. I used to hate Brussels sprouts, and I don't want to hate stuff. And the list, and French fries, with their favorite
Oh, French
sauce,
fries.
homemade or frozen. If they're frozen, they have to be like early quality. What does that world vibe look like? We have that. One of the pluses of this era we're leaving is, right, these 200 years of the uh, I'm going to get the astrology term wrong, but all the Jupiter Saturns conjunct in Earth, I think it's the grand mutation, and we're about to enter the hashtag New Age of Air for the next 200 years. with the Jupiter-Saturn meeting, and that starting right at 0 Aquarius, which is somewhat unusual. Um, End of autumn here, without trying to call the date.
Well, it's actually nice because it actually kicks off the winter solstice. I mean, it's a day. We get the sun move, we get Jupiter and Saturn coming together, we've got a season change. I mean, it's a massive welcoming. December 21st is like a welcome home party, right? You know, it's kind of a big new beginning energetically that we'll get to take the ride of on that particular day. I mean, even when I was doing the forecast for December, I was like, God, just even talking about it, it's a bit like a busy, energetic day, you know? And to move from just all of that earth into now this cycle of air and where we're going to take that, I think is going to be, it's going to be brilliant. And the way that we create security and resources through the connection of air is really something we got to start taking note of in March. People got a big blast of information. My experience with Saturn is when it comes into a new sign, is that it shows you what's wrong immediately. It's like, did you know that doesn't work? Which is why Zoom is like my favorite example. They thought they were good to go. They built this platform that was working really, really well. And they thought, maybe 10 million people will use it globally, right? And then they had a pandemic. Saturn stepped into Aquarius and they were like, you are not safe. There is porn on the church channel. Zoom, get it together. And so they learned quickly. And that is Saturn in a new sign, is like, this doesn't work. I'm going to fix it. While I'm here, I'm going to show you how to fix it. But this right here is a mess, right? So we got to see that.
I want to note for people and myself, we're moving from this era of Earth into this new age of air, different astrologers' term. Earth tends to be, at least conceptually for me, slower. Air moves very fast in contrast. So buckle up, not because it's going to be bad, but it's already moving fast, and you know that. I would argue, if you look back at calendar 2020 and how things have shifted and continue to shift. I want to throw this in based on our theme, and I was curious, and a little thing went in my head to leave us with, which is part of the love that I have, and I know a number of astrologers, pro astrologers as well as enthusiasts have. Two Uranus and Taurus cycles ago is basically in the mid 1800s. And this is when we see department stores emerge. And this is also, to your point about freedom, I didn't really know this, or at least remember it. I'm not a history person, but I'm learning more for a variety of reasons. Capricorn transits and astrology. Department stores helped women get out of the house and be in woman-only spaces that weren't, my verb of choice here, policed by men. Mm-hmm. That was huge and really shaped and shifted things drastically. That's also a Neptune cycle ago from right now that we're talking. Mm. In the middle, that was two Uranuses ago. It's two Uranuses for one Neptune. One Uranus Taurus ago, food production drastically changes because we're in the middle of not just two, but quite a few different wars without parsing that out. So now we know how to scale up food and feed really the whole planet at this point. But back in those days, a whole city or a state or territory or a small country, smaller than the US. And, you know, that's 84 years ago. It's changed. I just want to leave people with that. Like, I was able to quickly find and trace that back, knowing Uranus's cycle, or the last time it was in, not cycle so much as when it was in Taurus. And I was pretty sure, I'm like, wait a minute, department stores, wait a minute. And I just laughed. And it's like, oh, the universe, as our buddy Nadia Shah says, is so wise and loving. I think I have to remind myself of that, even with the trials and difficulties and challenges and the abruptness that we find in life. I don't want to just put that in Uranus. Thank you for having me on. I'm so glad we had this food. I'm very curious to see what kind of menu and how many people we could feed with probably some helpers and a bigger kitchen than I have here. Hopefully when it happens, but I'm curious about it within these next 2 years.
Yeah, I am as well. And whenever it happens, I just know that there's going to be some food happening. We're going to get together, gather with people, and it's going to be good. And I'm just so excited that you're here today as our like Uranian representative on this channel. And we got our little tribe name today. So we'll put a picture of you on our t-shirts, is what I'm saying.
Congrats on the name. Thanks for having me. Happy holidays. Happy end of 2020. It's been a lot of great chew, and I think that will prepare us for more of the Uranus and Taurus, #Taurus, and for sure the new age of air, which has that connection.
Oh my God, Tyrannus is just giving me everything right now. I have to take that with me, and I just have the vision of that little dinosaur. So, okay, you guys, thank you for showing up. This is so beautiful. I'm very excited for what's to come for the Astrology Soulmate family, and the eat and greets. And Demetrius, if you've got cool things going on, I will make sure we get a link to what you've got going so people can follow you and check in with you as well. So hopefully you guys, we gave you something that was worth the time you took to show up today. I look forward to seeing you either here on YouTube in the comment section, on Patreon, or wherever we meet. Okay, have a beautiful rest of the day, and I will see you tomorrow where Erliana will be here, and we're going to talk about the eclipses that we're going to leave 2020 with and actually see where they tie all the way to 2022. So more eat and greet goodies tomorrow.